On his way home late at night, Arga takes a shortcut through an old forest, a path locals say should never be used after dark. But as he walks deeper, the trees grow twisted, the air turns still, and shadows begin to whisper his name. Without realizing it, Arga has crossed into the world of the dead, and if he doesn't find his way out before dawn, he may never return.
The last embers of the campfire had long since died out. Most of the students had already gone home with their parents. The once lively campsite now lay under a heavy silence, broken only by the distant chirping of crickets and the occasional whisper of the wind rustling the trees. A soft mist had started to gather on the forest floor, glowing faintly beneath the moonlight. Arga sat alone on a damp wooden bench, pulling his hoodie tighter as the night air grew colder. He glanced down at his phone. 4% battery. Still no message, still no sign of his father. He was supposed to pick him up hours ago. He let out a sigh, annoyed. I'll just walk. It's not that far anyway. From what he remembered, there was an old shortcut through the back of the forest. It used to connect the campsite to the village, a path that would take no more than 20 minutes on foot. One of the event organizers had warned them earlier, almost casually. If you're walking home, avoid the old back path. No one uses it anymore. Strange things happen. But Arga had laughed it off. Stories like that always did the rounds during camping trips. Just another attempt to scare the younger kids. As the camp faded behind him, Arga pushed through the brush and stepped onto the barely visible trail. Tall grass brushed against his legs, and thorny branches scratched at his arms. The deeper he walked, the quieter the world became. No wind, no insects. Even the sound of his own footsteps seemed to dull. Maybe I took the wrong path, he muttered, glancing around. He raised his flashlight, flickering, weak. The trees ahead were warped, their trunks twisted unnaturally, like they'd been shaped by something not of this world. The forest floor was damp, with dark roots crawling across it like veins. The deeper he went, the more the air changed, heavy, like it was filled with invisible weight. And then he heard it. A whisper. Soft, distant, but unmistakably calling his name. Arga. He froze, spun around. No one. He quickened his pace, but his breath became uneven. The path began to split, though it never had before. 3 separate trails, none of which looked familiar. And when he turned around to go back, the trail behind him had vanished. Just trees. Endless trees. Panic surged through him. No, this can't be happening. Ahead, something moved. Standing in the middle of the left-hand trail was a figure. A girl. Still. Facing away. Wearing a scout uniform from a different era, faded, muddy, her long hair unmoving despite the stillness of the air. Arga's bread cottonus throbbed. And then her head began to turn. Slowly, but not her body. Only her head rotating an impossible angle until her empty eyes met his. He stumbled back, heart pounding, when suddenly a voice, all around him, inside him. You've entered now. Don't try to leave.
The voice didn't come from behind a tree. It didn't echo from above. It came from inside his skull, vibrating deep in his bones as if the forest itself had spoken.
Arga stumbled backwards, breath ragged, his legs trembling. The girl, or whatever she was, had vanished. One moment, her unnatural gaze had locked onto his, and the next, nothing. Not even the rustle of leaves to suggest movement. Everything was still, too still. Argus spun in a slow circle, his light flickering weakly in his hand. The forest around him no longer looked like the place he had entered earlier. The trees here were pale, almost gray, their bark dry and cracked like ancient bones. The ground was damp and sunken in places, as if it had swallowed too many footsteps. "This isn't real. This isn't real," he whispered over and over, trying to drown out the growing sense of dread clawing at his chest. But the forest didn't care. It had no intention of letting him go. Suddenly, through the mist ahead, a shape began to form. A gate made of rotting wood, arched and crooked, with strange runes carved along the top beam. As he stepped closer, he read the faded letters etched in what looked like dry blood. "Welcome, new soul." Argus' stomach twisted. His instinct screamed at him to turn back. But when he looked behind, the path was gone again. Nothing but fog and unfamiliar woods. With nowhere else to go, he stepped through the gate. On the other side, the world shifted. He now stood at the edge of a dead village. Small wooden houses, collapsed and forgotten, overtaken by roots and silence. Windows were shattered, doors hung loose on their hinges. There was no light, no wind, no signs of life. But something told him he wasn't alone. And then he saw them. Figures. Lining the sides of the broken road. Still, silent, watching. They looked human, but only at first glance. Their skin was ashen. Some had hollowed eyes. Others bore gaping mouths frozen in mid-scream. Their bodies didn't sway, didn't breathe. They just stood there, shoulder to shoulder, like statues. But Arga knew they were not statues. They were waiting. He tried to back away, but his foot struck something, a rusted bell tied to a tree. It jingled. All the figures turned to face him. Not a twitch, not a blink, all in perfect, dreadful synchrony. One of them, a tall man with a cracked jaw, stepped forward. His neck tilted unnaturally to one side. Then another figure followed, and another. They were moving toward him. Arga ran, heart hammering. He darted through the overgrown path, branches whipping his face, shadows shifting just beyond his vision. The fog thickened, swallowing the village behind him. But the sound of footsteps never faded. They were relentless, slow but unyielding, dragging themselves forward like they'd done it for decades. And just when Arga felt his lungs would burst, he saw it. A small, crooked cabin nestled beneath a leaning tree, barely held together by vines and age. A dim light flickered inside. He ran to it, yanked the creaking door open, and slammed it shut behind him. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of burnt incense. Candles flickered on shelves made from broken crates. Symbols had been drawn on the walls in charcoal and something darker. At the far end of the room sat an old woman, her back hunched, hair long and silver, and eyes covered with a red cloth. "You shouldn't have come here, child," This is not a place the living are meant to walk," she said before Arga could speak. Arga was shaking, breathless. "I didn't mean to. I just took the wrong path. I just want to go home." The old woman tilted her head slowly. "Home is further away than you think." Arga's voice cracked. "Please, help me." Silence. Then the old woman pointed to a cracked window beside her. But unlike any normal window, this one was opaque, fogged over like a mirror. "The way out," she whispered, "lies through the mirror of time. But beware." She turned her head toward him slowly. "It does not always show your true self." Arga stared at the window, or mirror, whatever it was. Unlike any mirror he'd seen before, its surface didn't shine. It was murky, as though filled with smoke on the inside. He stepped closer, hesitating as the air around it grew colder, heavier, and more unnatural with each breath he took. His own reflection didn't greet him. Not at first. Then, slowly, an image formed. A boy stood on the other side. Same height, same clothes, same wound on the knee from his earlier fall. But something was off. His skin was paler, his eyes darker. There was no life in them. And then the boy in the mirror smiled, not in relief, not in comfort, but with a knowing, twisted smirk. Arga took a step back. "That's not me," he whispered. The old woman in the cabin didn't move. "It is you, or it could be. The mirror shows what might become, the self that this world wants to keep." He turned to her. "So what now? I just walk through it? What if I become him?" "You won't," she said softly, "unless you forget who you are." Arga faced the mirror again. The image within started to reach out toward him. A pale hand pressed against the glass from the inside. It moved like water rippling around fingers. The moment Arga stepped closer, the surface of the mirror began to shift like a portal opening. Then he heard it again. Voices. Dozens, maybe hundreds, whispering, crying, some laughing hysterically, all of them clawing at the edge of his mind. "Stay with us. You don't belong there anymore. She already forgot you. They buried you. No one looked for you." Arga's heart pounded in his ears. The mirror pulsed now, drawing him forward. His knees weakened. His fingers trembled. He gritted his teeth and shouted into the mirror, "I do belong. I'm not dead. I'm going home." The reflection snarled, its eyes pitch black, its mouth gaping too wide, teeth jagged and wrong. But Arga didn't flinch. He stepped forward and reached into the mirror. Cold, wet air met his skin, and then he pulled himself through. He fell or floated. It was impossible to tell. Colors bled into one another, and time lost all meaning. The whispers became distant, fading into silence. When his feet finally touched solid ground again, he found himself standing on a long, endless road, a straight line of cracked asphalt surrounded by heavy fog. He looked around. No houses, no forest, no people, just the sound of wind and the chilling realization that he had crossed again, but where exactly he had landed, he still didn't know. Had he gone forward, backward, or somewhere worse? Then a voice, his own voice, echoed faintly through the mist. "Not everyone comes back whole." Arga froze. That voice, it was his own, but older, cracked, and drenched in despair. It echoed faintly across the endless fog-laced road, vanishing into the silence as though the world itself swallowed the sound. He spun around, searching for the source, but the fog was too thick. Everything looked the same, gray, lifeless, empty. The road stretched on forever in both directions, broken and warped like it hadn't been touched for decades. There were no signs, no sky, not even the sun. Just that voice still lingering in his ears. He took a shaky breath. Where am I? Now? There was no answer. Just the faint crunch of his own footsteps as he began to walk. Every step forward felt heavier than the last, as if the air itself was weighing him down. The temperature dropped. His breath began to fog. His hands trembled. Then out of nowhere, he saw it. A house. Old, crooked, standing alone at the edge of the road like a forgotten memory. Its walls were cracked, the paint long stripped away, and the windows dark. But it wasn't the house that made Arga stop in his tracks. It was the figure on the porch. Himself. Or rather, something that looked exactly like him. Same clothes, same scratches on the arm, same tired eyes. But it stood too still, its posture too perfect, its smile wrong. The doppelganger raised its hand in greeting, slowly, unnervingly calm. Then it tilted its head and spoke. "Hello, Arga. Took you long enough." Arga's S tightened. "What are you?" The figure stepped off the porch. "I'm what you left behind, the part of you that stayed, the part that belonged." "I don't belong here. I'm not like them. I'm not dead." The copy chuckled, low and sharp. "Aren't you? Then why did no one come looking for you? Not your mother, not your friends, not even you, until now." Arga clenched his fists. "You're lying." "I'm what's left when you forget who you are." The reflection smile widened, stretching unnaturally. "And soon I'll be the only one left." The ground beneath them shuddered. Cracks split across the road like veins, glowing faint red. The house behind the figure began to decay faster, wood rotting, roof caving in, as though time itself was collapsing around it. "Leave me alone," Arga shouted. But the figure took a step closer. "I am you." Then all of a sudden, without warning, it rushed at him. Arga turned and ran, heart pounding so hard it hurt. The world twisted around him. Trees appeared out of nowhere, their branches clawing at him like skeletal hands. The road crumbled beneath his feet. Voices screamed from the shadows. "Stay! Join us! You're already gone." Just when he thought he couldn't run anymore, he stumbled into a clearing and collapsed beside something that made his breath catch. A grave. Old, unmarked, but freshly disturbed, as if someone had just climbed out. He looked down at his own hands. They were covered in dirt and shaking. Argus stared at them, breath shallow, heart pounding in his chest like a trapped animal. The dirt under his fingernails, the cold mud on his palms. It wasn't just on him. It felt like it had come from him, as if he had clawed his way out of that very grave. "No," he muttered. "No, I didn't." But the earth beneath the grave began to shift again, slowly, creaking, breathing. alive. Something was still down there. A hand, pale, thin, almost translucent, reached up from the soil. Arga stumbled back, crawling on all fours, his shoes slipping against the wet moss and mud. He couldn't look away. The hand was followed by an arm, a shoulder, a head. It was him, again. But this version was rotting, skin peeled back in patches, hollow black eyes, a twisted grin stitched into a decomposing face. It dragged itself from the grave like a puppet yanked by invisible strings, never blinking, never stopping. And then it stood, full height, mirroring Arga's every breath, every flinch, as if mocking his fear. "I told you," it rasped, voice like broken glass. "You left something behind." Arga shook his head, slowly rising. "No, you're not me." "Oh, but I am. I'm what you buried to survive. The memories you wanted to forget. The guilt, the fear. The moment you stepped into this world, you woke me up." The thing took a step forward. "You're not going home without me." Suddenly, a sharp sound echoed through the clearing, like bells, but distant and metallic, out of rhythm. The trees around them began to tremble. The fog curled upward like smoke drawn into the sky. A light, pale and flickering, emerged beyond the clearing. Another path, another chance. Arga turned toward it, but the creature lunged. They collided, fists, teeth, nails. It was a fight not just for survival, but for identity. Arga felt his strength fading, like the longer he stayed, the more of himself he lost. "You're just a memory," Arga shouted. "I'm everything you fear becoming." They rolled across the ground, kicking up dirt and leaves. Then in a surge of clarity, Arga reached into his pocket and pulled out the only thing that felt real, the photograph, the one he kept of him and his mother. The creature saw it and hissed like it was burning. "This is who I really am," Arga growled. He thrust the photo forward, and the light from it spread, not blinding, but pure. The monster screamed, stumbling back, cracks forming across its body like shattered porcelain. The clearing began to dissolve. So did the path behind him. Only one way remained now, forward, toward the light. Arga didn't hesitate. He ran, and the last thing he heard as the world around him fell away was a whisper. "Even if you leave, part of you will always stay." The whisper faded into the wind as Arga burst through the fog into light. But it wasn't the blinding kind. It was soft, gray, like early morning just before sunrise. He found himself standing in a place that felt still, heavy, silent. A narrow hallway stretched out before him. Dim bulbs flickered along the ceiling, some long dead. The walls were faded yellow, peeling at the corners. Old photographs hung crooked on the walls, most of them black and white, and eerily familiar. He stepped closer to one. It was him, a photo of Arga barely 5 years old, standing outside his childhood home. But the smile was gone. His tiny face looked distant, vacant, like the soul behind the eyes had already left. He moved to the next frame. Another version of him, older, alone in a school corridor, surrounded by blurred shadows of classmates. Every photo on the wall was him at different points in life, moments forgotten, moments buried, but each one distorted, cold, as if the house itself remembered more than he did. And then, at the end of the corridor, was a door.
old wood, painted white, handle rusted. It called to him. As he reached for it, he hesitated. The whispers weren't gone. They were behind the door now, but softer, more desperate. "Don't forget us. We kept you safe. This world made sense, didn't it?" Arga's fingers trembled on the handle. He could almost feel them pulling at his thoughts, trying to convince him to turn back, to stay. But he knew now that wasn't safety. That was stagnation. That was death with a heartbeat. With a sharp breath, he turned the handle and pushed. Light, real light, flooded his vision. Warm, alive. He gasped as fresh air filled his lungs, damp earth beneath him, the sounds of crickets, leaves rustling. He sat up. He was in the forest, his forest. Night had fallen, but it was his sky above. The stars, the breeze, the scent of soil and pine, it was real. His fingers gripped the grass like he might fall through again if he let go. Tears welled in his eyes. He'd made it back. Somewhere far behind, something howled, not like a beast, but like a wounded part of himself being left behind forever. He turned and whispered, "Thank you, but I don't belong there anymore." Then from the distance, a voice, a real one, echoed faintly, "Arga!" It was his mom. He stumbled to his feet, heart surging with hope. He ran toward the voice, through the dark trees, through everything that was alive. And when he saw her silhouette in the clearing, torchlight in her hand, eyes wide open, he knew he had come back whole, maybe scarred, maybe changed, but alive.